Hello, welcome back. In the last video we went over the basic overview of WordPress, the dashboard, and some of the menu items. I did forget to go over settings, so I'm going to touch on that really quick, and then we're going to go over how to create and edit pages, posts, and menus, as well as adding photos, links, and styling your content. Now this is the general settings menu right here, and what you'll notice is the site title, tagline. These to some degree play in SEO, search engine optimization, where you don't have other settings specifically set. They also are used by the blog in any places where a title is required. Now a lot of what we do, we kind of get rid of this in the main title, but it still plays in the background, so you still want to have this content filled out. The web address and the site URL, both of these right here are going to be the same when the WordPress installation is hosted on the root of the domain. So it's possible to set your WordPress installation into a different folder, a little bit outside the scope of this, but it is possible, so that's why there's two separate ones there. Now keep in mind that the majority of this information is going to be pre-filled for you. It's already going to be there, especially if you're hosted with us. You know, if we set up the site for you, it's already going to be done for you. I just want to give you a brief overview here showing you what some of this information is. The email address here is the email address associated with the account. For new user accounts, this is going to be the administrator email. Now typically I am the admin on majority of the sites that we post, so I just deleted my email out of here real quick because I didn't want to have it running around YouTube and people emailing me that you know, like spammers and whatnot. Now the membership, this right here allows, if you click this box, it allows anyone to be able to register as a new subscriber on your blog. I typically leave this off to start with, and the reason being is because most of the comments that we use commenting plugins like Disqus or Facebook, so we don't really have to have a lot of local users on the blog. We find that people that have access to these other panels to be able to comment are more likely to comment and engage with your content than if they have to create a separate login just for your website. So we typically leave this off, at least on, I would say, 95% of the sites. Now we do have some social sites that we've created where it's necessary to have this on, and in that case we can set the default role directly below it to whether they're, you know, a subscriber or contributor. You typically don't want to give everybody access to author or editor, and you definitely don't want to give everybody administrator rights. The time zone, now this is the time zone that you're hosted in, and I notice this one here is actually not set, so we're going to go ahead and try to set this to well, if I can find it real quick. So you've got all of these different time zones, and we are actually in Central US time, and since we don't have a specific we have to find a city that is in the same time zone. So Chicago is the one that I usually set because it is in the Central US time zone, and when we're done with that we just have to save our changes real quick. And of course I forgot to set that email address, so we're gonna stop the video real quick, or never mind, I'll just block that out in the post-production. So we're gonna go ahead and save the changes. Good. And then we're gonna move on to writing. Now in the writing settings, again, these are all going to be set up for you automatically. If you have any questions about this, we can always come in and, you know, and fix that for you. These are the default settings. Now I've left these default just for the purposes of this. We will come in here and change this information later so that, you know, anybody watching this video can't log onto this site and post via email to it. But the default post category is a default. This is the default blog post category. We just renamed it, and then the default post format is standard. Now there's several different ways that you can set this up. We'll go more into that when we hit the post section, but those are the basics. And then update services, ping services. This one right here, the ping-o-matic, is automatically stuck into WordPress when you do your first install. Now there are many update services. We typically don't do a whole lot with these because Google, Yahoo, Bing, all the major search engines are pretty good about picking up on a new blog post. You know, once you've got them initially indexed. So we don't worry too much about this. Now on a very new blog that's never had any type of indexing before, we may add a few ping services in here just to get the initial SEO started. In fact, in this one right here, this is a new blog, so once we before we go live with this site, I'll probably add 3 or 4 other ping services in here. You can get a list of these just about anywhere. Just do a quick search on Google for WordPress ping services. We're going to go over here to reading. Now this is how people are reading, the settings for people reading your blog. The way we have it set up, I'm using a static home page. So what we've done is we've created a custom page, and then we've set that to be the home page of the site. So just to look at it real quick, the home page of the site, is custom designed. All of this is set up to look different than, say, the rest of the site, a typical page. These are all just pages that we've set up initially to to kind of fill in space and make sure that menus are all set up. But this is the way that you want this set up if you have a custom page. If you are strictly using this as a blog, as a typical rule, you're going to want to use your latest post, and what that'll do is your newest post that you put in is going to be the first thing people see when they go to your home page of your website. These settings right here shows how many different blog pages will show. So this is going to be in the category views and whatnot. How many blogs are we going to show, or how many individual posts are we going to show per page? And then for each of those posts, how many are we going to show the entire text, or are we just going to show a summary of each? And then search engine visibility, if you are typically in development, or if there's content that you just really don't want the search engines to see, you can discourage the search engines from indexing the site. But if you really want the search engines to stay away from specific pages on the site, what you're going to want to do is probably password protect those pages, and that can be done at the post level. Discussion, this is how people are going to interact with your website. So, and also how you interact with other sites. So when you post a link to another blog article on yours, it has the ability to notify that blog and put what's called a track back, or a ping back to the article that you wrote. So this is good if you're writing and you want to link to another blog. You can actually get a link back that the author of that post, and potentially even other people that have seen that post, can see what you've written about it and follow you to your blog. And the same thing, are you going to allow other people to do that to you? So if somebody reads one of your posts and they want to link back to it, are you going to give them a link back to their post? And then other comment settings, again, these are kind of null right now because we do have the subscriber settings turned off on this, but this right here would allow them, whether they can comment or not, whether they have to fill out their name and their email. And then threaded or nested comments, this is the ability to, when somebody posts or comment, somebody else can reply to it, and it's set in a little bit so you can actually read the kind of the hierarchy, for lack of a better way, of how these comments are going. Coming down here, these are some basic email. If somebody posts a comment or whatnot, you can get an automatic email to notify you of that comment that is posted. And then we also have some comment moderation, blacklist, words that can't be seen. You can blacklist anything from URLs to bad words, etc. The avatars are, when somebody comments on your site, their avatars or their photos have a rating to them similar to movies, G, PG, R, and X. Now we typically do a PG rating on ours because some people, some of these filters will show some girl with a duck face, like you see on the on social media, and they'll rate that as PG. So we typically leave those on so it doesn't block their avatars. But we're going to move down to the media. And these are going to be settings based on how media appears on your site. So the sizing of it, a thumbnail, which is a smaller section of your media, is 150 by 150 pixels wide. it's hard to really explain to somebody how big a pixel is because it's going to depend on how the screens are set up as far as how big they show, but 150 by 150 on a typical screen is going to be fairly small, maybe an inch or so, an inch and a half wide. 300 is obviously going to be 4 times that size, and then the large size is going to be pretty much full screen. Now all of these can be overwritten in individual posts, but this is a good basis for starting. Your permalinks is how the URL in the top bar shows up. So when you put in a new post, the typical starting is just like this, where the post would say, equals 1, 2, 3, or 1 equals 2 equals 3, and those it's just numerical. And then you have the ability to set them off using a rewriting technique that shows that shows a name, versus just a typical standard, p equals. What I typically do is a post name, or sometimes we'll use a custom structure depending on how many blog posts somebody is intending to write, where we may put the category in front of here, so it'll be divided category then post name. Any changes as this right here can mess up how everything is viewed on your site. If you have a lot of your blog posts are already indexed by the search engines, then what will happen if you change the way the URLs are rewritten on your site, it can affect your search engine ranking. So make sure you have this set up the way you want to, and think about it ahead of time. Again, if you're a client of ours, we've done the setup for you. We've already set this up based on our interpretation of our initial meeting or discussions with you. And we're not going to go into the hide my site because that's not something that's going to be normal access. So now we're going to go real quick into the into creating pages and posts. So we're going to start off in the pages. Now remember that pages are the menu items that you're going to see on the top and the bottom of the page. These are those hierarchical. You want to see them on just about every page. They're not, it's not something that's going to be, post type material or news type material. These are going to be your main information. So what we're going to do here, we can either add a new page just by going up to the top. We can come down here and just hover over this, and we'll see the menu that pops up under each one. We can edit, we can trash them, we can view them to see what they look like. This Thrive is something different. This is something that we have added to this site. So if you're not a client of ours, you probably won't see this. And you can also clone the page to make it, if you've got a page that you like the layout of and you just want to make another copy of it and change some content around, you can do that as well. So for the editing purposes, we're just going to go ahead and create a new page, because I'm just going to pop in some information real quick and I'm going to delete it right when we're done. So the first thing we're going to do is put our page title, if I can spell. Now once we've got the page title, it's going to automatically create our permalink, and it's going to set this over here where we can save, draft, preview, publish it, etc. So this here is your content editor area. You see a lot of different things here. We also have some additional menus that we can add. Now all of this from here, and then all of this on the bottom is all normal. You're going to see it in every WordPress installation. These over here are specific to plugins that we've used. Now this is a real estate website, so this has got some MLS plugins that are going in here, and then this is a Thrive plugin for different columns and shortcodes that we can add some additional features into this content. So from here, if you know how to use Microsoft Word or any other type of text editing software, you should be able to figure a lot of this out pretty easily. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take some quick information, we're going to pop it in there, and I'm just going to show you how to do some basic editing. So actually I am going to take the information directly from my startup on this video, and we'll use this. So if you want to bold something, you can hover it over it, you can hit the bold button here, or you can use keyboard shortcodes like Control B. So if I hit Control B, it's going to bold that, and when you see it, it's still bolded. If we want to add italics, we can Control I or hit the italics. If we want to underline something, we can come in there, we can hit Control U, or we can underline. So all of this stuff is here. If we want to do a strike through, we can do strike throughs. We can align our contents to the left, the center, to the right. We can even put in block quotes. So let's say we have a quote and we want to block quote that out. So what this does is it adds a quote, and this is going to be specific to your theme, how it displays up. Let's make sure it actually showed. Yes, it did block quote. So when you actually when this post, it may not show up any differently in this panel, but it will show up differently based on how your theme is done. So just keep that in mind if you do use block quotes or any type of quotations in here. Now, if we want to create a link, and this is probably the biggest one that people have questions with, especially some of our newer people that have not used to doing any type of web-based navigation. Hover, just highlight the word that you want to link, or this series of words, just like we were doing before. And this is how you insert a link. It looks like a little chain link fence. It's going to pop up. All you have to do is type in the link. So we're going to type in a link. And you can put in the www or not. The easiest way to put your links in is just to copy and paste it from the URL wherever it's going. Once we do that, apply it, bam, it's done. Now if we want to get rid of that link, say we messed up or something else, we can either come down here, we can remove the link, or we can remove the link up here, and now we don't have a link anymore. It really is, it's that easy. So anytime you want to set a link to somewhere else, this is how you do it. You can play with a lot of these, text colors, your justification. So justify is not much different than your lines. What this does though is it lines it up evenly on either side of the page, like if you were reading a book. You've got your numbered list, your bulleted or unordered lists. So if we wanted to create a list, we could just come in here and, well, easiest actually is to create the button first. So let's do a bulleted list. So this is a list. Let's go back to our justification, and every time you hit enter, it's going to add the next item until you turn off the list. Now we're done. Notice that it put the 3 over there. So if we want to keep 3, then we hit there and then we turn off the list. Same thing with a numbered list, 1, 2, 3, and then turn it off when you're done. A lot of these you can play with. You can come in and figure out what it is. If you want to add special characters, they're right there at a push of a button. Used to, you'd have to hold down the Alt key and know the numerical codes to insert these in by HTML. Now they're put in there right there for you. The one thing that I do want to point out right now though is the insert or read more tag. Now remember when we said that you can either have the full text or the summary show up in your blog page post. Now most themes, and especially the themes that we work with, are going to automatically have a truncation point where it stops it off and creates a read more content. That's usually done by a character base. But if you want to create a custom read more, like say you just want the first few words of this and then you want to entice people to read more, so what you can do is you can put that read more tag right there, just put it where you want it, and then you go up there and click the read more, and it's going to create a line there. This line will not be visible in the final post. The only thing it does is separates the content so that this top section here will show up in other pages, and they'll have to click on that read more link to actually see the entire post. Alright, so we're not going to go too much into these Thrive shortcodes. Again, if you are hosted with us and we put your site up, you're going to have this available. These are something you can just kind of play with. This right here sets different column widths and adds additional functionality as far as the ability to separate things. And then all of these shortcodes here are different ways that you can just add different ways of putting things into your site. So you can put buttons in, you can put divider lines, use drop caps, pretty much anything that you see here is a click a button, put in the information, and it's done. So with that being said, we're just going to go ahead and cancel this out. I'm not going to save any of this information, and we're going to, well, real quick before we move on to post, in Pages you can have parent pages. So if we wanted this to fall under the About Us page, we probably wouldn't, but if we wanted to, we could put it here. Now I'm going to show how to do custom menus, so we're not going to worry about how the menu settings lay out. But if you weren't making your own menus, which is something I highly recommend, so you just don't end up with random pages stuck in your menu in your header. But if we were not making our custom menus, we could make this a standalone page, or we can make it a sub page of something else, and then in those primary links it would show under that, versus being directly in the top level pages. The template, you're going to have a couple of different templates that you can use, and default 99% of the time is what you're going to use, but occasionally you may want to use a full width or a landing page type template. That's something that you really want to know more about what those templates look like before you start messing with it. So again, for the bulk of the time, you're not even going to mess with these. Just know that they're an option if you have a custom built landing page and you want to create a new page within that landing page. The order is something that's used in menus. We're not going to mess with that because, again, we're going to talk about how to use menus on their own. These are some Thrive options. Until you know more about how this all works together, I would say that you're probably not going to want to touch any of these, with the exception of maybe the page title. I know a lot of people like that they may not want to show the big page title, like for instance on an About Us page they may want to have something else put there. You can hide that, and you can actually edit out the tall title, the heading on the page, within the content box here itself. Now we're going to get more into some specifics of this in the SEO section, but one thing I want to note is that when we have headings, and I'm just bringing this up because I just said something about it, rather than just increasing the size of this using the font attribute and coloring and whatnot and bolding it, we can actually create this by using the heading tags. So heading 1, this is the tall heading on the page. This is the biggest one you're going to see when you first see it. If we want to do that, we pop it here. This is not necessarily what it's going to look like when it's on the finished page, because the finished page is subject to the style sheet that's associated with, and this right here is based on a typical word processing outline. So these are something that you can play with. As a matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and let's see, save draft. We're going to preview this just so you can see what this looks like with the style sheet that's associated with it. So the heading looks just like this is a heading. This is a heading 1 tag as well. Everything that we've put in here, you're seeing how it's laying out, and then this here is the block quote that we put in here, and see how it looks different than the regular text because it's technically a quote. So that should give you a pretty good idea of some basic editing guidelines. Again, we'll go into more in this on some specifics on how to write search engine optimized text, but the main thing I want to show you here is how to format different things so that you know how to do this. We're running on 23 minutes on this video. I did not want to go over 30 minutes, so the next couple things we're going to go through pretty quickly. First thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and delete this page that we just created, which I don't need a disclaimer. There we go. We're just going to trash that. And now we're going to move over to posts. Now, these are all posts that I've put up just temporarily to mess with. And again, the posts are pretty much the same as editing pages. Everything on there is pretty much identical. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to grab, I don't even know what half of these are. Let's see, we'll just use this one right here. And hopefully, does it have any? Okay, so this is a sample. Good. I just want to make sure it didn't have any user identifiable information on it. So what we're going to do here is all of the editing is going to be the same as with anywhere else. Now this right here is a specific, this is what's called a short code, and this is put in through the through an IDX link for MLS data for showing real estate listings. So if you're one of our real estate customers, you'll get that video in a different video to show you how to input those specific short codes for it. The big thing that I wanted to show you, the difference between a page and a post. Here on a post, you'll notice we have categories, and we also have tags. Now, the categories, these are like folders. Think of them like folders for organizing your posts. So how do you want it, your main way of organizing? And then your tags, you can think of these like keywords. So this, for instance, is a sample feature listing. Since it's well, I don't even know. Oh, that must be a specific listing. Say if this was a subdivision, a post on a specific subdivision or something, we may take the tag and name that subdivision, and then use put a comma in there, and so let's say maybe it's Robinwood, and then the city, and maybe even tags for some other keyword like lakes, ponds, etc. So these are all keywords that can be used to kind of categorize your post with others, but these are not going to be the main thing that people see when they're looking for something. Think of your categories here as your folders. So if you were on your computer and you were trying to find something on your desktop, for instance, the desktop is a folder within Windows, and then maybe you have another folder on top of that. So this is how things are found quickly and organized, to where tags are kind of sporadic and just keyword based. And then the featured image. The featured image is used for displaying a lot of blog posts at once. Since this website here does not have a lot of blog posts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull you to one of my blogs and show you. Now, what you'll notice here is that when we scroll down, this is the title of a blog post, this is the summary of it, and then this right here is the featured image. So that featured image is used to display. Now, if you don't put a featured image, what happens is you get nothing over here. And the reason why I chose this specific page here was because we had a couple of featured images and a couple without. So it's really just a matter of how you want to display it. If you don't have that featured image, then you're not going to show up anything. When you put this featured image there, it'll show, and really just add a little bit of extra pop to your site. And the next thing we have is the menus. Now, going to the menus, we're going to go under Appearance, and then we're going to go to Menus. This is going to be how your site, your menus are laid out. Now, the first menu that you set up is typically going to be your primary menu. Notice that we have some automatic menu settings down here at the bottom, primary and footer. When you first create a menu, if you're doing this on your own, there will be a button that says Create New Menu. You create it, and then the Save Menu button will show up afterwards. Now, when we set this up for you, we're going to automatically set up your base menu structure. But if you add another page to your menu, say you go in and create your own page, you're going to have to come into this menu structure, and you're going to have to create that page or add it to the menus if you want it on there. So let's say under the About Us, you created a new page, sample page, which this is not going to, we're not going to save this because it'll mess up the way things look. But when we add it, notice it comes down to the bottom. Now we can drag this anywhere we want, and notice if we put it here, it's still going to be on the same level as these, but if we pull it here, what will happen is it'll be under the About page and come down here. So for instance, how we have Choose Us, when we saved it, if we save this, then that sample page would show up underneath Choose Us. So that should do a pretty good job of explaining to you how to create pages, post, and edit your menus. I appreciate you watching this. The next video we're going to do is on writing for search engine optimized keywords. So if you're interested in learning about that, pop on and check that next video. If not, then you'll want to check out any industry specific post we'll be doing as well. For instance, I believe I've got some for real estate, some mortgage and insurance posts for some specific plugins that y'all are using on your WordPress installations. So make sure you check those out specifically so you'll know how to use those individual additional plugins. Thank you much. Bye-bye.